Can you hear me now? And there's no loops, and there's no echoes, and there's no other garbage, right? I'm really sorry for all of that. Okay. So let's get down to business here. Um, as you can kind of tell, I'm relatively new to this stream game stuff, and I was trying to actually get stuff a little more organized. I do record these streams and put them on my YouTube channel, and I wanted to get the chat included, so I was playing around with changing some of the settings in OBS, and it got ugly. So I put everything back the way I knew it worked the first time, and I'll deal with the other problems later. We are here to do summer camp today. I've got 4 articles done so far. I was hoping to get one more done on stream today. I actually picked a fairly easy one because, like I said, it's morning here. I had a very good 4th of July. Yeah, Tillers, I appreciate the the commiseration, I guess. So I figured I was going to pick a relatively easy one for today, and I think I'm going to work on my common document. Before I do that, I want to just jump in. I was doing some quick look-throughs of things. I wanted to see, who and how many. There have been 100 people who've put in common documents already. I'd be curious, does anybody know how many, if there's anybody's done a count of how many unique people have sent anything into summer camp yet? How many of us actually are there? Because I'm not prepared to go through every one of the 10 prompts and count up individual names. But we know at least it's 104 because there's 103 in here already, and mine's not done yet. So, so let's jump into this. We'll see how far we can get or how long my voice lasts. Get a little more coffee in there. So, if any of you were with me on stream on Thursday, let's bring up the article stub. You can see I've already given it a title, and I'll explain that very quickly in a minute. I'm going to work on a document that is issued by or in respect to an organization called the Merchant Minders. This is an organization that started out as basically just a bunch of mercenary sellswords for hire that would accompany merchant caravans, or either small wagons or full caravans on trips through dangerous territory between cities and so forth. But over the years has actually grown into a full service support organization. And now not only can you, if you hire the Merchant Minders, not only do you get a couple of guys to defend you from bandits, but if you go for the full package, you'll also get a kind of a mini entourage that comes along that includes people who are capable of maintaining, like a blacksmith that's capable of maintaining your wagons and horseshoes and things like that. A camp cook that can make sure everybody is well fed. The camp cook is also a basic medic. Of course, the sellswords are there too, but they'll also do other caravan organizing, especially if it's a large party. And the last most important thing that the Merchant Minders provide as part of their service is, as you're traveling along the road, and of course, if you're doing a long trip, from city to city, you're going to be stopping in little villages or even roadside inns and things along the way, and things, good bad things could happen. The Merchant Minders will actually provide guarantees to any shopkeepers, in inn masters, that sort of thing, in the event that the merchants that are actually, responsible for the caravan, in the event that they find themselves short of funds, the merchant minders will guarantee that any goods and services, especially emergency goods and services that need to be picked up along the way, get paid for. And then, of course, they'll settle up with the merchants when they're done. And again, this is basically it's a fairly well known service. The merchant minders are highly respected. Um, so there needs to be some sort of document. And the first question I have, I'm still kind of wrestling with, and maybe I'll get a little help here, is there's two directions this document could work. It could be something that the merchant minder gives to, let's say, the tavern keeper, because the merchant ran out of money, but we need to stay here tonight. So the merchant minder people could give the tavern keeper a document that says, it's essentially, don't worry, you're going to get paid. But that brings up the logistic question of how does the tavern actually get paid if they're 25 days from the city where the merchant minders are based or something like that. Do they have to then bring it, travel somewhere, or what, how does that work? The other version of the document, and I think this is the more practical one, would be a document that the merchant minders ask the tavern keeper to sign. That, basically almost like a bill of sale sort of thing, but it's a special additional document that that would also carry the merchant signature, that basically says, yes, I'm going to pay. You laid this out. Here's the bill from the tavern. The merchant minders laid out the money for this, and I'm going to pay you back when we get back to wherever it is we're going. So, and again, it's a common document. All of the tavern keepers and major service providers along the way, along the various ways, would know of this thing and wouldn't have any problem participating in it as a signatory. And every merchant who's worth his salt understands that that when one of these documents needs to be used, it's going to cost them money, because of course the merchant minders are going to take some interest along the way too. They're not going to just you spent we spent 200 gold re-outfitting the caravan. Well, it's not going to cost the merchant 200 gold when he gets back. It's going to cost him 220, 240, something along those lines. So a couple of quick questions for the chat before I really get started, and that is, one, which of the two document versions do you think might be more interesting? And second of all, does this sound like a worthwhile approach to handling this prompt? So while I wait for hopefully one or two answers to come back from the chat, I will say the first thing, I've kind of preloaded this article with something that I tend to do all the time, and that is I've gone through the whole article template, and I like to know what these things are going to look like in final article form, because I'm maybe it's a little bit of my OCD, but I like to kind of make sure there's some balance between the main body article and the sidebars. So I like to get a feel for which pieces are going to end up where. All right, so if you can see what I've done here, all I've done was basically run through the whole template and just put a word in each section so that I can see how it's going to lay out when it's viewed. And this will, help give me some hints about, if there's some things as I go along, like, there's a fair chunk of sidebar here for this already. So that there might be some pieces that I, I've done this before. I might, if there's some small things like legal status, that might end up getting moved over to the sidebar. It'd take a little manual work, but but I'll do it. The other interesting thing about this template that I kind of wasn't expecting was this. All right, there's a pop-up built into this template where I can place the actual, a copy of the actual document. And this could be an image. I could play around with, I could lay it out in text, but play around with a different font. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, and I don't know if I'm going to finish that bit today. We might get the contents written, but this is a very interesting piece of this template. I think that we could have a lot of fun with. The more artistic of you out there could actually end up with an image of an unscrolled parchment and that sort of thing. Yeah, Tiller's. I'm going to jump around. So far, everybody seems to agree the second is better, and I think so too. Just from a practicality standpoint, like I said, the first document would actually be easier to write and would look more like an official document. We the merchant minders guarantee payment for X dollars or X gold or whatever. But again, it's okay. That's great, but I'm a tavern keeper in the middle of nowhere, you know, 3 weeks from the nearest town. What good is this piece of paper to me? um, so I think we're definitely going to go with the second approach. Tillers, yeah, I don't use a lot of those sections. Yeah, I almost never use every section in every template. Um, but like I said, the first thing I like to see is where are the sections going to end up, and sometimes that'll help. And you can kind of tell as you look through them too. Um, purpose, obviously, we're going to need. Some of the sidebar stuff is not a big deal. Related, as you can see, I didn't even fill in everything here. Related location, related myth. There's no myth involved with this thing. Some of them can be, again, hints to me too that I'm going to need. If you look here, there's a document author and signatories, all right, and a signatory organization. Well, I threw the merchant minders in as the organization, but as far as these two prompts, the document authors and the signatories, they want you to create article characters. Well, I'm certainly not going to create characters for every merchant that might possibly ever do one of these things. And there is no individual merchant minder author of this document. So, so these two certainly don't apply to me. Related myth, that there really is no myth, about this, and related location is everywhere. And again, the problem with this, if this was free text, I could put something into it, but it's not. It's a click. It's either pick an existing location that you have, and it looks like at least it looks like it's smart enough to take both settlements and locations, by the way, which was reassuring. But if you don't do that, then you have to create an article, and it's either a settlement article or a location article, and that's not going to help me here. So those are getting skipped. Moving along to structure clause. I don't know how much of this I'm going to fill out here, especially if we're going to put the whole document in. I mean, there'll be probably descriptions about the clauses, not the clauses themselves, and the same thing with the caveats. This is where we'll talk about, and in fact, as I go through this here, I'll throw a few bits in. Is going to pay interest on the loan this document represents, because that's essentially what these documents are, is some sort of loan, loan paperwork. So that's going to get turned into real text later, obviously. Legal status. And again, this is all going to get fleshed out. Publication status. I don't think publication status is something that applies here. So this one we're probably just going to skip. We'll knock that out. And references. Which other documents are referenced within this one and in which capacity? I could maybe mention an associated bill of sale. Either that or there's no point in putting this piece in. So I'm going to leave that alone just for the second. We'll figure that out later. Historical details are going to be funny, or not funny, but fun. There will definitely be some background and history to this, all right, that explains how the merchant minders kind of evolved into providing these guarantees. Public reaction we'll definitely talk about. By all right, so again, all of these people know they know what these things are if you're along a trade route anyway, and they have no problem, becoming part signatory to it. So that'll be their legacy. What are the long-lasting repercussions of this document? Is it a national? Well, it's we'll flesh that out in a little bit shortly too. Represents a debt that the merchant had better pay. What is the effective duration of this document? Until payment is made. Here's a few others that I'm probably going to leave out. Authoring date. Now, this one is a free text field. So I could put in here, and maybe this will be the first real entry here. Created as needed when minders are required. Oh, is there a limit on this thing? Oh, look at that. Maybe I can't. It's not full free text. It's free text, but it's very limited free text. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to put anything in here. I might have to make it up myself and put it over on the sidebar. Ratification date certainly doesn't apply. Yeah, I figured it would be a one-liner, but it was even less than that. I mean, it was maybe 30 characters or 20 characters. Let's see. Like I said, ratification date's not going to apply. Expiry date. Again, there really is no expiration date. I'm going to leave a question mark on that because we're going to cover that with term. So it might be that term ends up in the main body of the article, and expiration date is a summary bit in the sidebar. So that might still fit. I'm going to leave that there. Let's see, what else is the template going to ask for? Oh, and then we have actual contents, and this is just a big text field. And again, this is where we get to play. Tiller's excellent. All right, you're reading my mind. You actually selected my birthday with your suggestion there. which I find interesting. You had a 1 in 365 chance. So actual contents, this will be one of the last things we do. And like I said, we might play with this. I might have to, I do have the ability to go in and play around with CSS. So I might create a section with a different font, or, do something to make this look interesting. Maybe if I really want to get fancy in the future, come up with some sort of scroll background or something. Some sort of scroll shaped or torn paper edge background or that sort of thing. Yeah, I almost don't need to use a quote. I mean, I could, like I said, right now there's already something there. By the way, I have a couple of places where I basically just create things very much like the quote. And in fact, we're going to see one in just a second. But yeah, so like I said, we can play with this a lot. I think once we get to it. I'm not sure how much we'll do for the first draft, but there'll be a lot of interesting things. So anyway, getting back to things, the first thing we're going to want to do is get. Actually, we're going to save everything we do. Again, if nothing else, everybody remember save, save, save. There's nothing worse than losing your document. If I do a quick refresh on this, we'll see if we've changed anything. Oh, it's gotten a little shorter over here, a little shorter over there too. So again, this already kind of pops up with, well, it's not the prettiest, I guess, of pop-up windows. Um, actually, I could, and I'm not going to do it now, but I could play with Inspector and see what container this is itself is in, and see if I can play with the container itself. But failing that, and a container inside the container is certainly possible. So we'll do that. The other thing you'll notice I had done was in the notes for storytellers. This is something I did on day one. Um, I put a copy of the prompt text itself just to remind me what it is we're doing. And I put ideas, and actually this is an idea, I'm going to get rid of this. This was another idea I'd come up with for this document. But it didn't fit the template well. So this was going to be like an identification brooch um, or like a cloak clasp or something that would recognize, that would represent a specific status among not only the settled people but also the forest denizens of the Feywood Forest, which is the setting I'm working in. But like I said, it was so far away from the rest of the document that I decided, yeah, this thing is definitely going to exist in my world, but document is probably not the best template to use for it. So we're going to get rid of that. We know what we're doing instead. So let's get started. Anything worth checking in the chat? Not yet, no. Tillis, just let me jump back. You said, yeah, you didn't use a lot of these sections. Your document is basically fortune cookies. That's interesting. I might toward the end of this jump back and read that. I want to see what you did with it. That's another excellent idea, by the way, especially if you're not sure exactly what or how to attack these things. And maybe we will do that. I want to see what you mean by fortune cookies. So let's see if we can find tillers. We're going to put tillers on the spot. There it is. Words of Aziz. How many times has this been read on stream so far, tillers? Small rolls of reed with a symbol, short sayings or very vague prophecies coming directly from Aziz, written onto their inside. They're being sold in the hall of Aziz in Parafifi for a copper each. So they're fortune cookies, but you got to pay for them, huh? Purpose. Words are handed out by the temple to spread the wisdom of Aziz and give people hope and proof that their goddess is with them. Document structure. All right, you used clauses, but each word contains a short sentence or symbol. Each is self-containing and doesn't reference any other documents. The symbols are not being explained. Each buyer of a word has to interpret its meaning for themselves. All right, here's a question. Did you make these up, or did you just buy a bag of fortune cookies and steal them? Keep smiling. It makes people wonder what you've been up to. That's a well-known one. I'm not going to read every one of these. I'm going to just skim through a few of them. Okay, yeah, there are known quotes. Yeah, those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. That one's interesting. That's an off. Is that an offshoot of those who can do, those who can't do teach? Uh, do not ask for a light load, but for a strong back. To perceive is to suffer. Nobody can be exactly like me. Sometimes even I have trouble doing it. That's a good one. Uh, no matter how good you are to people, you will always have others criticizing you. That's very true too. You said they're not part of the three. What are these images? I assume you set them up as images, so they don't count as words. Um, Caveats: when the word has a prophecy written in it, it can or cannot happen. There is no guarantee given or stated if there are conditions connected to it. The words of Aziz are widely spread in Dashan and traded between people. Some are keeping their little prophecies private, though. People buy them in singles or handfulls to have a giggle, learn something, or get an outlook into their future. Most of them are sold during the Festival of Words, and you assume you have a link. You have a link stub to that. How many other people think that August is going to be spent filling in the 275 article stubs that we've created during summer camp? I know I'm up to I think I'm running an average of three or four stubs per summer camp article, and they are all eventually things I want to get done. So what do we have here? Oh, you actually have the oh, interesting. You used it as if it was one of your fortune cookies. You used the same template as the prompt itself. Um, Type, medium, location. So you had a location. I'm not going to have a location. So that's an interesting one. I like that. But everybody can see. Did this make 300 words, by the way? I didn't check the. I assume it did. So as you can see, it doesn't take a lot to hit the 300 word minimum. Um, everybody should remember that. I need to remember that. The last two articles I've done were 1,500 and 1,900 words each, because once I got going, it just kept going. Um, so I managed to kill, let's see, 10 minutes of messing around with technology, and then a half an hour before I've started to write a real word. So maybe let's get started here. So I mentioned before that I do have a couple of sections. Help to spell it right. I have set up a format different section block, and basically all it does is puts larger text here than it will everywhere else. Just to show you, real quick what I mean. And these are some of the simple things that you can do if you're playing around with CSS, which I think you need to be a grandmaster to do, so I hope I'm not upsetting those folks that aren't. And if we look now, you'll see that this text is a little bit larger than all of the other body text that's going to appear there. But that helps make it stand out a little bit. The other thing I do like to do, and let's get started with this part actually, I do like to have at the top of the document, where right now it's right where these notes are, where the prompt note is. I like to start my documents with a quote up here, but a quote that spans the whole body. I think every guild member can do CSS. Okay, so I know everybody has. I know every guild member has at least some limited um, formatting options, and they get more detailed as you go up. I just lose track of which parts are where. So anyway, I like to put a quote up top here, and I like that quote to span the whole body. So let us jump back here. And the way I do that is I come over into the sections area, and there's a section called credits. All right. This section, I never use it for credits, by the way. When I do credits, I put the credits in the full width footer. All right. So, and we'll see what that does here. Credits for artwork, etc. Go here. All right. But here I will put a quote block. Well, the fingers are not working today. And again, we'll just to see what that's going to look like. Come over here and re-click. All right, so yeah, this is where my smarmy opening quote will go. This block is going to disappear because when I'm, as I go along and I know what the prompt is, I'm going to just take this out, and this second block will disappear. And as you can see again, down at the very, very bottom of the document is where my artwork credits and things will go. And so I have everything covered like that. So don't, especially in the sections area. I mean, obviously some of the sections, define exactly what things are. I mean, the sidebar, the 4 sidebar guys are what they are. But when you get down to footnotes, full width, footer, and credits, don't be afraid to use them for whatever you want to use them for. Wrote a summary article for the 10 articles, which is 800 names long. Oh, you're more power to you. I'm building a full RPG campaign, and the religion in the religion section alone in the campaign world I'm building. Each of the major races, has a relatively small pantheon of gods, but when you multiply the relatively small number of gods by the number of major player races, I think I'm up to 53 gods that I need to define. I've got one set specced out. I've got the elves pretty much covered. I know what I want to do for most of those other 53, but it's going to take a while for me to make each one of them a worthwhile article. You think so? You're going to get a whole religion done in a month. More power to you. I will be keeping track just to see how you're doing. Yeah, Tillers, are you the guy that's going to try to do all? I know that you did all 10 prompts that all interrelate. Or is that somebody else? I think that was you, right? Yeah. Okay. That I am looking forward to checking on that. I toyed with the idea of doing that myself, and I did come up with a couple of pairs and 2s and 3s. I got one triple. The condition that I wrote about is caused by the venom of the apex predator that I wrote about, and the apex predator exists because it happened to establish its lair in the ruins of a 2,000-year-old alchemist's tower / lab. In other words, repurposed building. So I have those. I was going to do a pair on the document and the title. I'm going to stick with the title, but I'm switching off the document. There were a couple of others I think that I have in 2s and 3s. So you got 8 out of 10 done so far. That's good too. I'm trying to stick on a 1 per day track, and so far I'm good. And if I don't actually start writing today, well, it's early. Even by the time this stream finishes, I'll have plenty of time to get this done. But we'll see what happens. All right, so anyway, I'm not sure what I'm exactly going to put in this quote yet, but I know I'm going to want it. So I'm going to just leave this as a placeholder here for now, and we'll get back to it. And the best place to start with all of these things usually is in the vignette. Okay, and I might end up changing the title of this too, because again, it's letter of guarantee was when I was thinking of it as being the, give it to the innkeeper as a promise of payment. But it's not really that anymore. So I'm going to have to come back and change the title on that soon. But the document that we're working on, and I'm going to leave a placeholder for the title for a second, is a loan guarantee document. I'm not sure which way I'm going to spell guarantee yet. By the way, if anybody's interested, there's guarantee can be spelled either with a Y or a double E. If you're using it as a verb, as in, I guarantee that you will get paid, then it is always the double E. If you're referring to a document that provides that guaranteed thing, then you can use either the Y or the EE form. The Y is a little more archaic and classical. Yeah, we had a discussion in somebody else's chat yesterday, Tillers, about British English for, especially for spelling, British versus American. And I was pointing out that there are definitely, in British English, there are definitely too many U's and not enough Z's. Because British, of course, you put there's S's in words like organization and all of those sorts of things. But let's not get into that argument today. I'm going to go with guarantee because it just looks a little, again, it looks a little more official and archaic, and this is this is a pre-technology fantasy world. So there's a loan guarantee document that is prepared and signed whenever unforeseen circumstances require a merchant minder. I'm going to have to come back again. There's going to be a lot of word adjusting in this thing. Whenever I don't want to use the word unit, contingent lays out funds to cover that the hiring merchant or caravan group cannot afford. It is a document. No, it lays out is used to make sure paid for services, goods is a promise to pay with interest by the merchant to the merchant minders. One thing I will do, by the way, merchant minder obviously is going to need a, oh, look at that, I already have them in here. I already have the merchant minder document in there. How about that? That definitely deserved a link. Something else, I don't know if everybody can do that. Oh no, it was its own document. Wait a second. I do have the merchant minders organization in there. Okay, so there it is. I don't know if everybody realizes you can do this. By the way, let me just get this cleaned up first. All right, if you want to link to a document, all right, but the text of the document title isn't exactly what you want to have fit in your article. Like in this case, if I just leave this as is, it's going to read is a loan guarantee document that is prepared and signed whenever unforeseen circumstances require the merchant minders contingent, and that's clearly not what I want. You can, once you've created this, the important part of this link is the part that's in parentheses, the organization and the random looking text string that actually is the tag to the document. The part in the brackets is actually something that you can adjust after it's in here. So you can, like I said, play around with the text that's inside the brackets after you've created that link, and the link will still work. So if I come over here, and there goes the voice again. If I come over here now and I refresh this, all right, you'll see it reads the way I want it to. All right, unforeseen circumstances require a merchant minder contingent. I actually have to fix the English on that, but the link still works as well. And this, okay, it is an article stub, but at least it's there. So there's a trick that everybody might already know, but if not, there's your free trick for the day. Loan guarantee document that is prepared and signed whenever unforeseen circumstances require a merchant minder contingent to lay out funds. Covering expenses that the hiring merchant. Okay. I might actually go back and play around with this even more. But again, using Janet's best wisdom, let's try to get at least a first draft done, and then we'll come back to things. I'm going to take this out now, the commonly found document, what's in it and what it's used for. I think we have enough hints along the way to make sure we answer that question. Purpose. I don't have to keep, that's another thing. Don't always repeat, because there's going to be a title up there that says purpose. So you don't need to start with the purpose of document in detail the goods and services, goods or services that are paid for out of merchant minder paid for out of the funds that a contracted, I need to come up with, again, I'm using unit here again, I need to come up with a better name for what you call the group of merchant minders that you hire to go ride with your wagon train. That a merchant minder unit lays out when the hiring merchant cannot or will not pay. Because we can play with that will not somewhere along the way too. I mean, you know, if basically the merchant minders, in order to maintain their reputation, if you had a situation, for example, where you know you pull into a village, you know, with you've got damaged wagons or damaged this, and you need work done, and the merchant, you know, the work it all gets done, and the merchant for some reason decides he's going to either try to undercut the guy, or he's going to, you know, not pay for X or Y or whatever it is. The merchant minders will make sure that the service keeper or innkeeper or whatever will make good, or you know, that he's made whole, that he gets paid what he's supposed to get paid, and then they take it up with the merchants. Again, not necessarily while on the road, but if that merchant ever wants to do business with the merchant minders again, they're going to pay their debts, and it's a horrible, nasty world. And by the way, the merchant minders are a monopoly, so um, if you don't if you're a legitimate merchant traveling from city to city and you're not using them, then the odds are very good that you are going to get robbed. So we have a little arrangement here where, you know, the merchant minders provide a service. They have a reputation not only among the merchants but among all of the people that they might interact with along the road. Um, and the bandits know to leave them alone too, because their sellswords are pretty good. So the merchants want to deal with the minders. The minders, you know, it's not like they're out to gouge the merchants. They have enough business that they can stay very happy doing stuff for reasonable prices. But they also won't stand getting screwed out of payment, you know, along the way. So you know, you have all of those sorts of things, and again, not all of that is going to end up in this document, of course. That's where the other document is going to come in eventually, but that's not part of summer camp, at least not yet. We'll have to see what else comes in the next 23 prompts. Document describes in detail goods and services that are paid for out of the funds that a contracted merchant minder unit lays out when the hiring merchant cannot or will not pay. What else? It forms a binding contract between the minders and the merchant that becomes an enforceable. Any lawyers out there? You can help me out with some legalese here. Attachment to the original contract for merchant minder services. Don't have to say much more here for that, because there's going to be a lot of places to get into the details. We're going to make them look official. You know, we're going to put them on fancy parchment. They're not going to be on destroyable paper. They are a private contract. Again, we talked about this. Location really doesn't apply. There is no myth. We're skipping authors. We are putting the merchant minders. There is, there are other signatories. So I may have to take this out of this prompt and move it. If I do that, I'll probably move it to the sidebar. But I might end up just creating a signatory section, and in fact, maybe I'll just do that now. Looking real quick at the way this is going to look and seeing what I'm going to do with it. Because one of the signatories is the merchant that's hiring, and again, there's not going to be an article for the merchant that's hiring, and there's no other way to put something into that section. What I'm going to do instead is, okay, so it already shows up over here in the sidebar, so that's good. But what I'm going to do instead is, and actually it'll let me get rid of that word organization too. I'm going to jump over here, and in order to get it to maybe appear in the same spot, I'm going to try putting it inside content bottom. And we're going to create a key value pair here called signatories. And we can actually get more specific here too. All right, the signatories are the master of the merchant minder unit, the hiring merchant or association, whatever they happen to be. And there's actually a third signatory on these, and that is the goods or services provider. And we close that off. And that doesn't need to have anything fancy. I don't need to put the merchant minders in a link here because they're already in a link in the document. That's another thing, by the way. Some people tend to, like, every time something gets mentioned that you have a document for, that every time it's mentioned you put a link to the document. That can be overkill, and having all of those different colored things pop up on your screen can sometimes get annoying. So taking a page out of other formal document recommendations, the first time you mention somebody or something that you have a longer article for, you should definitely include the link to it there. But once you've done that, you don't need to you don't need to put that link on every single other reference. Like I said, first of all, it gets hard to do, and second of all, it ends up cluttering up the article with visually. There might be times when you want to put an extra. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna, like I said, because I put that over there, I'm gonna take this out of here and go back to make your choice, which should leave it blank. There might be times when you want to explicitly put one in, and especially if it's a long article and it's been a while since since your thing was referenced and it's not even on a scrolling page anymore, then you might want to put it on again just so that it's always there. But I've seen some articles that they'll mention XYZ 6 times in a paragraph, and every one of them has the same link. It almost sometimes too it even gets annoying to the reader when there's too many of those. So I'm going to clean up the text on this, but you'll notice I guessed right by putting it on the sidebar bottom. It ended up in the same spot that it was before. But now my signatories are here. So I might want to clean up just the formatting of this a little bit because it almost reads like it's trying to be a paragraph and it's not. What I might do is put them in a list. In fact, I think I'm going to do that right now. But it's there, and there's no links there. Let me do that real quick and see if that looks better because I don't like the way that looked at all. Sometimes key value pairs get messed up when you try to nest some things into it. So I think we're going to take the other approach here and kind of fake it because it's not a pair anymore. I think they're H4s. I'll find that out in a minute anyway. And we want a bulleted list. And then, yeah, I don't know if anybody is not familiar with this, but the UL stands for bulleted list. OL is ordered list. Those are a list with numbers. And then you put each item on the list inside of a group called list item, which is bracket LI. This is the BB code for these things. Bracket LI and then slash LI after that. I know I don't need the break anymore because it knows that the new list item needs its own line anyway. I do know that I think anybody, any guild member can certainly do BB code, so this is something that everybody can do. And then after the last list item, you have to tell it that you're done with the list. And I don't need the double hyphens anymore. I forgot a bracket on the header. Thank you, Tillers. Let's see what that looks like real quick. Okay. Did I leave a break in? I must have left a break in there. Here's another little tip. You notice here, because I have merchant/association without spaces in it, it ended up deciding it didn't all fit here, so I'm going to just change the line there. It is simple enough to fix that. Yep, I left the break in there. Let's get rid of that. All right, the word spacing will be much better if I leave the spaces there so that it knows it can break. And in fact, for association. Let's look again real quick. Is there any way to change the default font for each header? If you can control CSS, then yes. I need to refresh this. So if you're at the guild membership level that lets you play around with your own CSS, then yes, you can. And if you want to see how, I can show you where to go and kind of what it looks like real quick. Let me what do I want to do? It's under settings and tools, configuration. I'm looking for the world page. Because on the world page, under styling, there is a section called Presentation Cascade Style Sheets. Oh, they changed the name of that section actually recently. And you will actually see that I have defined, I've used this to set my own fonts for heading levels 1, 2, not only the font name, but the font size and the color. There's my H4s, there's my H5s. So just as a quick example, all right, if I come in here and change this to blue and say save changes, and then I jump back over to this sample document, nothing happens. Why? Was that an H4? I did do H4 there, didn't I? Did I change H4? Or did I change the wrong header? I thought you loved going down rabbit holes. H2, H3, H4. I changed the color to blue. That should have worked. Is there another H4 section someplace? Because it's in the sidebar. Don't think so. Hello. Now I got to go back and see why this isn't working. Thank you for asking the question, though. What is my computer doing? Here we go. Songbird, what do people always have their CSS break when you ask ask for questions? Don't let that stop you asking though, because there's either a simple explanation for this or there's a problem that needs to be fixed. So don't think of it as causing trouble. Think of it as pointing out room for improvement. Um, why is this suddenly taking so long? I am having hard. Am I getting bad frame rates right now too? By the way, no, it looks like my frame rates are holding. So we'll blame it on the World Anvil server then. That is an H4. There's no doubt about that. Oh, excellent, Songbird. Yeah, glad to be able to help with that. Songbird was working on the repurposed building, and she had a very, very excellent description of what the building was now. But it kind of, I think in their mind, they implied that it used to be an administrative building, and then it got wrecked, and then it became another administrative building, possibly by a different group. But that kind of breaks the, what is going on here now? Why am I looking at maps? I don't want to look at maps. I want to go back and look at my CSS. So yeah, so a few of us were trying to come up with suggestions, and the way she had the building described, it could have just as easily been a temple as an administrative building in the past. So it looks like you now took the temple angle. All right, again, everything you had already written was perfect the way it was. So you threw in a little extra stuff, and I'll take a look at that document later if you want, and see how it came out. So why did my header for not turn blue? Watch, it's going to be something as simple as it hadn't taken the save yet. Let me just try this one more time. No, definitely isn't that. Is it because it's in the sidebar? Okay. You know what? I'm not gonna jump down this rabbit hole now. I'm gonna go back and deal with that in the future. Um, I'm gonna just put it back the way it was for now. I did hit save changes before, didn't I? Yeah, I must have because I reloaded this page. All right, so we're going to get rid of that now, and we're going to just come back to doing what we were doing. All right, so anyway, I'm happy with the way this looks now. Did I miss anything else useful? Songbird, I'm gonna get back to you with the font thing once I figure out what is really going on there. But it should be as simple as that. Again, if you have access to that section to let you define the CSS, look at the CSS guide in the codex. It'll provide a lot of information on what you can change and can't change. But the short answer to your question is yes, you can change the font, you can change the size, you can change the color for each of the individual header levels, and they go down. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One has got some kind of built-in uses in the templates. By the time you get down to 3 or 4 or 5, certainly, you're kind of on your own at that point. And that's another thing, by the way. Don't feel that just because there's something called header 1, header 2, header 3, that you have to use them in that hierarchy. If you have a document and the way your document is laid out, the style that you have defined for header 5 fits better, even though you don't have a header 4 above it. All right, there is nothing that requires that header 4s are children of header 3s, which are children of header 2s. All right, you can, I mean, they're just labels, so you can put them anywhere you want them. Tiller said something. If I put H4 as a tag, yes, that's true. Oh, is that the problem? Oh, yeah, I forgot all about that. Anvil does you the favor of kind of redefining all of your headers, and that's because is it the article title that's header 1, or the world title that's header 1? So they do you the favor of shoveling all of those down. So let's see if Tillers has just saved the day. Now I'm going to go back and do this one more time. We're going to do this in a new tab. So because signatories is a header 4, that's really a header 5. Is everybody confused yet? So now if I come down in here and I find my header 5 text and change the color to blue, and save it, and refresh this. Look at that. There it is. There it is. It's blue. And why did it change all the other blues? Because key value pairs, which is what all those other things are coded as, I think, use that H4 or header 5 format. All right. So there, Songbird, there's a demonstration. Yes, you can change the title colors. Let me put that back the way it belongs now before I forget. Where's my blue? There it is. Somebody had written an article for their condition. I do not remember who actually made excellent use of that. And as they described the condition, they described the number of stages that a victim of that condition would go through. and they changed the colors of the headers from a yellow to a light orange to a dark orange to a red, where the last stage was dying, I think. Um, but the visual of actually using the headers to denote the severity of that stage of the condition was a very, very nice touch in the article. Um, what does Tiller say? You cannot change every header one by one, except with a lot. That's true. In order for that person to have done that, they literally needed to define something other than just header 4. They would have had to create some special tag or a section, perhaps, that looked and worked just like a header, but had its own name, and they would have had to use each one of them because for each different color. But the possibility exists. I mean, the ones that are the tags that are labeled H1, H2, H3, there's a lot of built-in CSS that describes how headers work, and that person would have had to duplicate all of that into to make sure that the headers still behaved like headers, but but that each individual one was what they wanted. So yes, it would be a lot of work. And yes, I think that, yeah, again, yeah, you might need to use sections. You might be able to do it without sections, but I'm not sure. Um, so anyway, let's get back to this. Where we got 40 minutes to go. So I got the signatories, we got that all taken care of. Let's get back to the document and see how much else we need to do. Purpose, we took care of all of those. Okay, so we're done with all of those. Now we're into the document structure. Document clauses. Each document contains two sections. Do I want to do that? I don't like putting lists in my text body. The first well, contains a preamble and two main sections. First section essentially itemizes the goods or services for which the vendors are making payment of the merchant or of the hiring merchant. The second what's the word I want? That's not the word I want, but it'll do. What's the equivalent word for verbalizes when you're writing something out? When you're writing instead of speaking. Lays out the pay the loan is effectively a loan. This section articulates, that's the word I wanted exactly. Thank you. This section includes terms of interest, includes interest rates, etc. We'll leave it like that for now. Thank you again, Songbird. Caveats. Parameters and consequences of certain actions relevant to the document. Oh, and you know what? Actually, is that another section of the document? Yeah, let's do this way. 3, and this might actually read well. It contains a preamble and 3 main sections. Normally I don't like single sentence paragraphs, but it might work here. I'm going to see how it looks in a minute. The first section essentially itemizes the goods and services for which the merchant minders are making payment on behalf of the merchant. That sentence reads long. I'm going to have to play with it. The second articulates the requirements for the hiring merchant to repay what is effectively a loan. This section includes interest rates, payment due dates, etc. Then we're going to jump down. Caveats is going to end up. It's going to have the hopefully this ends up right beneath it in the document. Because what we're going to go to right here, the third main clause of the document, describes the consequences for untimely payment or outright refusal to honor. And I'm going to put the name of the document here. Again, I have to go back and figure that out. That'll be the last thing we do today, probably. Outright refusal to honor the terms of the whatever. Describes the consequences should the hiring merchant fail to make timely payment or simply refuses to honor the terms of the agreement. These consequences from a legal standpoint include, and we're going to make these nasty, and this isn't necessarily an innocent until proven guilty system either. These consequences include the right for the merchant minders to confiscate property or wealth to repay the debt. Might just leave it at that. Again, not that the merchant minders are ever use this to just like rob somebody blind or whatever, but the threat of them doing so is might be interesting. A statement is also included, making it clear that the minders will no longer do business with a merchant or trade organization that does not honor its debts. And it's worth mentioning here, being or organization that the will no longer do business with. You know what? This is, I think we're going to change the breakpoint of this paragraph to here. Is left with either the requirement to hire independent sellswords, independent and independent sellswords the reputation there is no other organized competition to the merchant minders or for the merchant minders. To the merchant minders. I think we get the point there. And like I said, this is, you know, if you mess up and the merchant minders refuse to do business with you, then you're screwed. You're going to have to pay for independents who might themselves be working with the very people you're hiring them to protect you against. They might just be useless on the road. You have to deal with all of the other peripheral goods and services that the merchant minders offer. You know, if you're running a single wagon, that's not so bad. But if you're running a full caravan as a trade organization or a collection of merchants, then you've got to deal with making sure that everybody is getting fed. You've got to make sure that you can deal with breakdowns along the road. All of those things suddenly become, you know, instead of having the merchant minders handle it, you've got to handle it yourself. So what's understood among the merchants is if you get on the wrong side of the merchant minders, your cost of business has just gone way, way, way up. Add to that the fact that once word gets out that the merchant minders won't do business with you, that in itself is a smirch on your own reputation, which might make it harder for you to do business with partners. So that no real merchant wants to ever get on the wrong side of the merchant minders is the bottom line there. So that's almost like an unwritten. It's not officially part of what the part of the document. The formal part of the document is we won't do business with you anymore. But it's important to get across the fact that that's not just a minor statement. All right, not being allowed to do business with the merchant minders carries with it severe consequences. You know, maybe not immediate, but long term. Legal status. I'm not going to bring up my maps and things, but again, the merchant minders operate in an area called the frontier, or the frontier lands. There are a number of um, in my world, there are a number of organized kingdoms. The frontier lies outside of those. There are a number of free cities that are large cities that have been around for a long time and have survived major catastrophes and things, global catastrophes and things like that. They're still there. They're large. There are tens of thousands, if not more, people living in them of all races. Um, but the free cities are just that. They're independent city states, essentially. They have their own little sphere of control around them, maybe a village or two nearby. But so they're not organized kingdoms per se, and they pride themselves, in fact, on not being part of any kingdom. Um, but most of those are along a major coast. Trade is big and booming, and some of that trade, of course, is by sea, but a lot of it is by land. So all of the free cities are going to certainly recognize, because they'll all know who the merchant minders are. All of the free cities are going to recognize the legality of that document. And keep in mind, there's a piece of that document that says if the merchant minders don't get paid, they can just come and take your stuff. So if you're a merchant and you don't pay them, and suddenly you show up for work today and half your shop is gone, um, and in his place is a note that says, we're the merchant minders. We came for our stuff. You weren't here, so we took it. Um, basically the merchant themselves has no legal recourse because of the documents they signed. So that's what we want to get across here. All of the free cities in the frontier lands, and frontier lands should definitely get a location. They have one. Okay. And again, back to this trick. I don't want a capital on the frontier lands here inside the text. And I don't need the word lands anymore. All of the free cities in the front. Free cities should probably get a document article too, right? But I'm not going to put that in right now. Maybe I will. Now here's a question. All right. The free cities, if I'm going to put it, I could certainly put together an article for them eventually that describes what they are, and as I just described, that they're not part of any country or not part of any kingdom, but they are not. I mean, they are locations, but do I use the location template for that, or is there another template that might fit better? Since I'm not going to get into all of the details of any individual location in a group article like that. And pardon me for slapping the microphone with my mug there. So we'll get back to that. All of the free cities in the frontier lands recognize all right, it's time to come up with a name for this document. Including the clause is the right. Oh, what are we going to call this document, guys? Let's go with loan guarantee. That'll work as a simple enough name. to go back and fill in. Oh, there's another one. Oh, we're going to definitely need to fix this. Minders, loan guarantee. Now I don't have to say loan guarantee document here, do I? Is a document. Loan guarantee. I'm sure I'm missing one of these someplace along the way. Publication status we're not going to deal with. References. Other documents referenced within this one. So that'll take care of references. I need to, again, the one outstanding thing is I still need to deal with this word unit, which I don't like. Unit contingent. All right, who's my thesaurus experts out there? I mean, a good name for, you know, the little group of these merchant minders that gets assigned. By the way, oh, you know what? Team will work, because they are supplied. They're constructed as teams. They work as teams. Is there a good global search in here, by the way, or do I just get to use the one on the website? The one that my browser provides. The browser's not going to give me one for this. Excellent. Am I missing something? Oh, I'll go hunting. Team. I don't see any there. My allergies are starting to kick up. Reminder team. There's nothing else there. Let's save all those changes. Unit brigade, yeah, that's a little more. That is a little more militant. It might also imply a little bit larger than I'm, because I mean the amount the number of people that get assigned is going to vary, obviously, with the size of the unit. I mean, if you're a trade organization that's going to be sending 50 wagons out on the road, then you might need 20 or 30 sellswords plus the chuck wagon and the blacksmith wagon and that sort of thing. If you're only sending 4 units or 4 wagons out on the road, you don't need that many sellswords. So let's see how we're doing here. I'm going to do a quick look at my metadata. 498 words done so far already. So I guess this is good enough to put. It meets the requirements now. because I'm going to start wrapping this up. We got 10 minutes to go. I have a few other little odds and ends. I did the save, right? Yeah, I just did the save. Let's do it again. Never hurts to do multiple saves. Let's see what this looks like. See if we can find any major flaws. I obviously still have to do something to demonstrate the document. Oh, see, I changed that. Oh, yeah, this is another. Yeah, I changed the name of the document, so that won't work anymore. Now I have to come back here and ask for preview again, because the old link didn't work because I changed the name of the document. Come on. Pardon me. I am gonna want to put a new cover art on this. I still have to do the document itself. All right, it's the merchant minder's loan guarantees document. This detail the goods and services are paid out funds. I'll have to expand that a little bit just because the purpose of the document is actually to make sure that the merchant minders get paid for the money they lay out. Preamble and 3 clauses. I need to put in a little something about what's in the preamble, which is basically just garbage that says this is an agreement between blah 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 blah. Oh, I have to get into background and history. This is going to be another thousand word article by the time I'm done, guys. Public reaction we can knock off quickly. Legacy and term, we'll have to see if that term might end up just getting either dropped or moved over onto this side. Maybe instead of expiration date. Where's the legal status? I might reword this legal status section and kind of truncate the wording a little bit and move it over into the sidebar, because that's the kind of stuff that I like in a sidebar. This is basically the bullet point version of what's in the long text. What is this? It's a contract. All right. Yeah. It's a physical piece of something. Again, authoring date may have to disappear. Expiration date might get replaced with just legal terms or whatever. But the legal status, who signs it, what is its legal status? Those are all good sidebar bits. What needs to stay over here though is the background history, public reaction. So I think legacy, that looks like it's going to end up being redundant given everything else that's up here. So that might just go away. I still need to come up with a good quote. I'm probably going to come up with 2 quotes for this document. One up here to kind of introduce the whole thing. And this one will actually probably be from the standpoint of a merchant whose whose major travel was saved because the merchant minders provide this service. Can I put a link to this in the chat? Yes, I will definitely do that before I forget. There is a link to the document. So anyway, I think that this leading quote is going to be one of these. Is basically going to be something describing some merchant describing the fact that his business was saved because the merchant minders did this for him. But I think I'm going to put a second quote down here, probably at the end of the caveat section, that's from a merchant who made the mistake of not honoring one of these. All right, so in fact, as a reminder to myself, let me jump down, and that's right, that's under structure. Quote. Oh, quote to be created. And we'll put an author in there for now. Quote needs to be created, and it's made by a merchant who screwed up. So that'll be in there. Let's look over historical details. And then I'm going to need to work on getting the actual contents in. This is, I think that's going to be an important bit of this. I may just go for finding a nice cute font or two. Like I said, to just mock up one of these documents rather than go for an image. But we'll see. Background history. Just put a reminder in here for myself. This section needs to describe how briefly how the merchant minders came to offer this as part of their services. What's their description for background? What is the cultural, historical, and political background for this document? Does it end a war or mark the subjugation of the people or define a contract between two entities? I think it's pretty clear from everything I've done before that it defines a contract. So I think we might just lose that section. Again, how does the public react? There's just going to be a quick line in here about the fact that everybody knows what these are. The providers of the goods and services are more than happy to be, part of them because, well, why wouldn't they be? They're getting paid in a situation where they might not otherwise. Legacy, long-lasting repercussions of this document. If I keep this section in at all, it's probably just going to reference the earlier text describing what happens if a merchant doesn't honor the document. And as far as term, yeah, I think what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to get rid of expiration date. And we're going to jump over to sections and probably above signatories. H4. Oh, let's see. Yeah, everybody loves Tiller's duck emotes. What do I want to put as a heading here? Term of validity doesn't sound right. It's not just an expiration date because it doesn't have an expiration date. I don't want to use the word time frame. And again, I can go with bullet for me kind of things here. Um, let's leave it at that. Repayment terms. Somebody have any suggestions here? No, I'll have to think about that. Like I said, I don't like terms of validity, but we'll see. And I don't remember if it's one break or two that I want in there to keep the spacing uniform with built-in stuff. Let's see. By the way, in a minute or two, it's going to be time for me to wrap up, and we will be rating Hefe. So stick around for that. Let's take one last look at this document. Okay. We'll see what's still missing. I will tell you, unfortunately, the only way to play around with settings for things like Twitch is to temporarily go live with test settings and things. So my next stream is Thursday in the same time slot as this one. If you see any, if you're following me, which I hope you all are, if you get a notification on Twitch that says I'm streaming anytime between now and Thursday, ignore it. It will be a short term of me trying to get in and hopefully fix some of the things that I wanted to fix without creating all of that horrible feedbacky stuff that we started the session with. There's really no other good way to do that other than to set up a second Twitch account, and I'm not really going to do that. I missed an H in my terms of validity, so it made it all a header. How about that? So let's make that one last change, take one last quick look, and then it'll be time to get out of here. And Heffy, I think I saw you in the stream earlier. We'll be there in a second. So let's do one last refresh. I did change that, didn't I? You saw me change that, right? You saw me put that H in there. Did you see? Did we not see me hit save changes? Now we've saved changes. And now it's clean. Okay, so that, yeah, that I don't mind that. That looks okay. So we can see where my quote needs to go. You see this section's a little shorter. Again, legacy may drop out of here. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with this. Looks pretty good, decent spacing, a couple of quotes. Have to play with this. And by the end of the day, I will have all of this mess done, and I will have this article submitted. So with that, I want to thank everybody for hanging around on the chat and helping me out with the various things. It's one of the it's one of the benefits, you know, that I think it's underrated, you know, for these streams is the ability to ask a question. Should I do it this way or that way, or what's a good word for this and that sort of thing? And having two or three or four, even just one other opinion out there. Whether you take the opinion or advice or not, it makes you think, and more often than not, it's always worthwhile to hear those opinions. Um, so I strongly encourage it, and anybody here that isn't streaming or that might be thinking about it but isn't sure, if it's worth it, believe me, it is. So with all of that, all right, everything here is saved. I now need to very quickly get Twitch back up, which I accidentally deleted when I was trying to fix that mess before. And I need to get that up so that I can make this raid happen. Come on, you can do it. Everybody send your magic to the spinning circle. Here it goes. Come on. That should be enough. Do more spinning circles. Yay. This is not the view I want. Stream Manager is the view I want. And raid channel. And there's Hefe. Okay, folks. Remember to tell Hefe to keep the forge lit. And I will be seeing you.